Faith and Hope by Seay and Horton. There was once a young woman named Faith, who gave birth to a beautiful baby girl named Hope. The two were inseparable, and many couldn't believe how close of a relationship the mother and daughter had. Everyone always commented about how well they got along with one another. Hope loved how close she and her mother were. She appreciated how open and honest Faith was with her.
Many of her friends envied the fact that Hope could talk openly about anything and everything with her mom. But like with any relationship between a mother and a daughter, there can always be sunny skies and smiles.
As Hope got older and moved into her adolescent years, things between her and her mother slowly began to change. Faith soon realized that no matter what she did, she was always wrong in the eyes of her teenage daughter.
Hope couldn't explain the change in attitude towards her mother, but for some reason Hope frequently became agitated by Faith. Hope usually went to her grandmother's house when things between her and her mother weren't going smoothly. She liked to get away from it all, and she loved to visit her grandmother Grace. During one of her visits, her grandmother sat down and told her that it was time for the two of them to have a talk. It was long overdue.
I've watched this madness between you and your mother go on for long enough. I thought that the two of you would be able to work it out, but it has become clear that if I just sit back and leave things up to you and her, there will be no resolution. Now, tell me what the problem is. Hope sat back in her chair and thought for a while. She wasn't all that sure herself what the issue between her and her mom was. She just knew that there was a problem.
Where Hope began, I'm not sure what's getting between us. It's not really positive about what the problem is. I don't know where to start. Oh, come on now. You two have been bickering like cats and dogs for a few months, and you mean to tell me that you don't even know why? Grace sat staring at her granddaughter. She knew that something had to be done, and she had no intention of letting Hope leave without getting to the bottom of things.
Hope sat in silence for a few more minutes. She knew that her grandmother was a stubborn woman and would sit and wait all day if she had to. Hope gathered her thoughts and did her best to explain herself. The longer she sat there, the more she began to think. Hope did her best to collect her thoughts and explain to her grandmother that she felt her mom was always making her decisions for her or pressuring her into doing what Faith wanted, not even taking Hope's feelings into perspective. Hope also told her grandmother that her own actions in response to what Faith was doing could have been more appropriate. But for the past few months, Hope was rude to her mother, insulting things that she did and said out of her own unhappiness. It embarrassed Hope to think about the way that she had been acting.
The two sat quietly for a long while, and finally her grandmother broke the silence. Your mother loves you, plain and simple. No matter what goes on between you two, I want you to always remember that she loves you unconditionally. I'm not surprised that you two are having these issues. I always thought it was a bit strange that you managed to go 18 years without so much of as a harsh word against one another. Now nature has us caught up with you two.
I know that she loves me, replied Hope. I just don't understand why she doesn't trust my ability to make my own decisions. It seems as if she's constantly pushing her opinions onto me and trying to force me to do what she thinks is best. Hope and her grandmother talked for a while longer before Hope was on her way home. After she left, her grandmother sat and thought about what her granddaughter had told her. She began to realize that part of the problem was that Hope was on her way to college and was trying to find her own identity. For such a long time, it had been Faith and Hope. In a very short while, it would be Hope on her own, having to make her own decisions and find her own way. Grace figured that it was time for her to talk to her own daughter, Faith, to try to explain what was going on with Hope.
After speaking with her own mother, Faith realized that maybe she was trying to hold her daughter a bit too close. She understood that Hope was no longer a little girl that had to be told what to do. But she couldn't help but want to hold her daughter's hand and help guide her through many of her life's decisions that Hope had to make. At first it took a great deal of effort to Faith to bite her tongue and only give her daughter advice when she asked. But like any mother, Faith knew that there comes a time when you have to let your child make their own decisions, and pray that they listen to everything that you taught them.
Faith didn't always agree with the decisions that her daughter made, but during these times she would think back to when Hope was very young. She always wanted to run before she was able to walk, so Faith had to let her daughter fall once or twice so that she would learn.
Faith and Hope talked to each other, and they each apologized for the way they had behaved. Hope told her mom how pointless the entire thing was, and how also she pointed out the two of them were able to sit down and talk about everything out earlier. They could have avoided the entire thing. Communication has been the key to our relationship for as long as I can remember. But somewhere along the way, we stopped talking about things. And that may have been where their whole thing expired out of control. Pain is forgiven when gain comes. The women were able to let go of all their issues and move on. In a relationship of any kind, you have to take the bittersweet and move on.
Grace was elated when she saw that her daughter and granddaughter had finally been able to work things out. She wanted her family to realize that they had to take the good with the bad, happy and sad, so that they can make a better future and learn from their past. She didn't want Faith and Hope to make the same mistakes again. The two of them didn't have that much time before Hope was off to college in the fall, and she didn't want anything to keep her family apart. Grace had faith in her daughter's parenting skills, and she knew that Faith had given Hope the resources that she would need to be successful and happy. Grace hoped that her granddaughter would be able to find her own identity and still have a close-knit relationship with her mother.
Hope's graduation came and went fast than any of them imagined. Grace watched proudly as the women she raised cheered on her daughter. She couldn't help but be proud of Faith and all of the decisions that she has made. They thought and gave her comfort as she thought about the life that laid ahead of her granddaughter. She knew that whenever path Hope chose in life, it would lead her to victory.